Welcome to episode 20 of Directed by Steven Spielberg. Today's film continues with the sci-fi genre, but this time with a bit more action and thrill thrown into the mix, and that is the 2002 sci-fi film Minority Report starring Tom Cruise. A fantastic film that I have seen many times, but I am excited to review and analyze it today. Let's dive in. Minority Report is a science fiction thriller set in Washington, D.C. in the year 2054, where crime has been virtually eliminated through the use of pre-crime, a specialized police department that uses three psychics known as precogs to foresee and prevent crimes before they happen. The system is infallible, predicting murders with absolute certainty, and the suspects are arrested before they can commit the crime. The story follows Chief John Anderton, played by Tom Cruise, a dedicated pre-crime officer who believes in the system after losing his son years earlier. Anderton's world is turned upside down when the precogs predict that he will commit a murder himself in the next 36 hours. Shocked and confused, Anderton goes on the run, determined to prove his innocence and uncover the truth behind the prediction. As he delves deeper, Anderton discovers the concept of a minority report, which is a rare occurrence where one precog sees an alternate future that differs from the majority's vision. This revelation suggests that the pre-crime system might not be as flawless as believed. Anderton seeks out Agatha, the most powerful of the precogs, who helps him uncover a conspiracy that involves the murder he's predicted to commit. In a climactic twist, Anderton uncovers that he was set up by his mentor, director Lamar Burgess, played by Max von Sydow, who used the system to cover up his own crimes. The film concludes with the downfall of the pre-crime system, as its flaws are exposed and Anderton is exonerated. The end. This is a fantastic film, to put it simply. While Spielberg is very familiar with the sci-fi genre, Minority Report is the first genuine thriller he's made since pretty much Jaws. But he navigates the genre with absolute ease as he pulls on all the usual bags of tricks to create tension and suspense. Let's take a look at some of them. Starting off are the Spielberg lights. I mentioned in my last video in this series about AI how it had more Spielberg lights than any other Spielberg film. Well, I think Minority Report has topped it again. This film is straight up off the charts when it comes to background light saturation, to the point where our characters almost have a glow following them around the entire film. It has all kinds of Spielberg lights, such as the saturated light sources, streams of light through the windows, or those blue highlights enhancing silhouettes. What was the purpose of this excessive lighting? He wanted to create a futuristic film noir atmosphere and felt that the heavy use of contrast lighting emphasized that theme. I mentioned his previous film AI, and I do think that Minority Report takes a lot of its visual cues from it, but applies a more darker, noirish filter to emphasize the thriller aspects of the film. Other Spielbergian traits include the classic zoom-in close-up, drawing attention to a character as they stare intently at a subject in the distance. And then a great top-down tracking shot of the scene with the spider robots as they crawl into each apartment. Speaking of that scene, another excellent example of Spielberg's ability to create tension as Anderton hides at the bottom of the bathtub. It's easy to invest in the tension as the setup efficiently explains Anderton's limitations from his recent eye transplant, and thus we can invest in his struggle for survival. As impressive as the visuals are, the storytelling is equally impressive. The entire opening sequence draws you into the characters and the world and explains everything the audience needs through the exposition and actions. One of my favorite scenes is when Anderton explains how pre-crime works to Witwer. I love the example he uses to answer Witwer's question. So simple, yet so effective. If you look at the last three Spielberg films, including this one, each of them has boasted a truly thought-provoking central dilemma. Saving Private Ryan dealt with the question of risking a group of men to save one. AI played with the idea of a robot being able to display genuine love. And then now with Minority Report, the central dilemma revolves around the ethics of preventing crimes before they happen. If we had the technology to predict a murder before it happens, should that justify classing the would-be perpetrator as a murderer if they're prevented from committing the crime? That's the central dilemma, and by film's end, it has a resounding answer to this question. No. The events of the film highlight the potential flaws in the system and show the level of inhumanity and restriction to freedoms it imposes on society, not to mention challenging the very concept of free will. Speaking of which, the central dilemma is presented in this film in a poetic way that I truly appreciated upon this most recent viewing. And that is that John Anderson is the leader of the pre-crime unit, motivated by the loss of his son and his obsession with essentially a post-crime that he is powerless to change. Great stuff. I've spoken about all the great aspects of this film, of which there are many, but there are a few drawbacks to the film as well, most of which are slight plot holes. The first of which is during the car factory fight. None of the men think to stop the conveyor belt carrying the car, which allows Anderson to escape. I get they wanted an action scene in that setting, but it's a poor justification for letting it happen. Then when Anderson drives to Hinneman's house, why didn't they track the car to the location? They set up so well how strong the surveillance systems are in this world, yet they don't think to track his car. Lastly, and probably the most glaring, towards the end when John's wife uses his eye to gain access to the pre-crime facility, why wasn't John's eye removed from their access database? Seems like a massive blind spot in their security, which once again is shown to be extremely robust. Apart from these issues, one of the other aspects worthy of praise is the performance by our main cast. Starting at the top, Tom Cruise is at his action star best, whilst also bringing tenderness and raw emotion to his performance. The scene that stands out is when Leo Crow tells him he killed his son and he collapses upon the realization that his son is officially gone. Max von Sydow gives a great performance as the director of Pre-Crime, who is revealed to be the bad guy in the third act. Which is a great scene, by the way, as you see his demeanor and the expression on his face slowly change before killing Witwer. And of course, Colin Farrell as Witwer is fantastic too, believed to be the villain for 3/4 of the film before the big twist. Overall, Minority Report is an incredibly tight yet ambitious film that deftly combines a futuristic dystopian thriller with present-day themes. It is a fantastic film that is truly one of the more underrated entries in Spielberg's filmography, which is testament to the man's greatness as a filmmaker. Another incredible entry into Spielberg's sci-fi resume. This man continues to show why he is the king of the sci-fi genre, and it's not even close. With 6 of the 20 Spielberg films so far being classed as sci-fis, Minority Report is not only amongst his best sci-fi films, but amongst his best films, period. For that, I'm going to give Minority Report a very strong 8.5 out of 10. It currently shares that score with Jaws and Empire of the Sun, and I think it is best placed right between them in 7th place. Considering we're at the 20th episode mark in this series, let's take a look at the overall rankings so far. As you can see, Jurassic Park still sits in first place, whilst 1941 is still in last. And if I average out the scores of all these 20 Spielberg films so far, they come in at roughly 8 out of 10, which is extremely impressive. Anyways, that concludes today's episode. The next film in this series is Spielberg's other 2002 film and one of my personal favorites. And that film is the biographical comedy drama Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. I am a big fan of Catch Me If You Can, and I'm excited to watch it again for this series. Until then, I thank you all very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.